You hear me now? Hi,
Okay,
can you hear me?
Kate,
Yes, can
we
you hear
can't
me?
hear you.
Okay,
But she's not muted. Oh, unmute yourself.
Oh,
can you hear me now?
tell me we're gonna have this problem again.
No, I think we're having, I just want to know if DOG is here. Well, you know what? I think we better stop because it's 25 of.
Yeah, but we can't hear her
We can't, you
now.
know what, it's only in the room that we
Oh.
can't hear her, because Stella said she could hear her
Yeah,
online.
that happened last night too.
Oh,
All right,
dear.
so how did I solve it last night?
Did you solve it last
I
night?
did, it was not elegant, but it worked.
It's on
All right.
So did anybody here sign in while we're talking? Garcia, you did sign in, right? Oh, you signed in, okay.
We can sign in for any meeting.
So I would be doing it as part of CB1. Until
So in other words, they can hear us, but we can't hear them.
So far, that seems to be the case,
If I put my volume on here, you could hear it out of my computer.
but I'm gonna do the L instead.
Okay.
So.
Not if that's off.
I knew you signed it.
I'm gonna trust Mark, I trust.
You signed it?
Okay, Long is,
We'll go back.
Is that?
Jeez.
No, I'm not. Oh, it's this.
It's supposed to come out of there.
It's somebody else.
All right, now try it. So, Kate, can you hear us?
Yep, I can hear you. Can you hear me? Oh, okay, great. My colleague Huma Hussein is on as an attendee, will be presenting on microhubs.
Okay, so we're all set for you then. Great.
Yeah, if you could elevate her when you have a moment.
The name?
Her name is Huma Hussein.
I think I know her. Okay.
Oh, yeah, there you are.
Are you a co-host?
Okay, great.
No.
Okay,
Nobody
so
is
we
a
are
co-host.
beginning. It is at 6:30. This is the Traffic and Transportation Committee of Community Board 2, Manhattan. I am Shirley Secunda, the chair of the committee, and we are beginning our meeting, and I'd like to introduce you to all of our members. I think first I'll introduce you to our member who is hosting tonight. So you introduce yourself.
I'm Dan Miller, a public member of the Traffic and Transportation Committee.
So you're public.
You all.
I'm Janine Kiley, member of the committee. Lucia Sands, member of the committee.
Lois Rafford, member of the committee. Susan Gary, committee member.
Committee member.
I do. Janet Left, committee member.
Okay.
Amy Brenna, committee member.
Oh, there you are, Amy. Amy's back here. Okay.
Fitzgerald, committee member.
So those are our members, and before I go into the regular agenda, just like to give you a little tutorial, I guess, about our procedure. I think a lot of you know it, but it's always bears repeating. Tonight we have 2 items on our agenda. They will each be heard separately. And they will be addressed separately. In other words, they will be presented by whoever is the sponsor. Then the committee will ask questions. After that, we will have the floor for the public, who will both ask questions and make comments. And just a couple of guidelines, I think that probably everybody knows. Keep yourself muted. When you're ready to speak, raise your hand if your guest's here, or use your little hand raising symbol on your Zoom program to say that you'd like to speak. Otherwise, please don't do any cross conversations. Anyhow, you'll be muted, so I don't think that's going to be a problem. So without further ado, I will go to item number 1. It's something we've been looking forward to hearing about for a long time. And it is a presentation by the New York City Department of Transportation, DOT, on their micro hub program. So DOT, it's yours.
Great, thank you. My name's Huma. I'm the Deputy Director in our Freight Mobility Unit at DOT, and I've been leading the development of this pilot, and I'm excited that you're excited. So I will share what it's all about and then open it up for questions and discussion and opportunities of interest areas in your community board. Share my screen now. Actually, let me change what I'm sharing. Okay, can you see that?
Yes.
Great. I'll make it full screen. And again, all right. So here to talk about the microhubs pilot. So I'll just jump right in. I'll give you an overview of how we're defining a microhub. It is a new term for New York City and much of the US. I'll give an overview of how DOT would be managing and monitoring the pilot locations, and then we can open up for discussion about any ideas about specific locations in CB2. So just some background context, and many of you probably are experiencing this. It's been going on for 4 years now, where there's just been a significant rise in residential deliveries and e-commerce and online shopping. And this kind of came out of COVID in 2020, and there was just a really significant flip in the way deliveries were demanded in the city from commercial customers to residential customers. So at a certain point in COVID, it was almost 80% of deliveries are now going directly to residential customers. And another factor in causing some of the ripple effects of high demand and truck traffic and double parking is that most of our deliveries in New York City are conducted by truck, 90%. So this has a significant impact on quality of life, and especially in residential areas, given that flip in demand. And then you see the impacts on local streets, a lot of sorting and transloading on the curb, or, kind of spilling over into the sidewalk and travel lanes, a lot of double parking, a lot of trucks roaming around narrow streets trying to find places to pull over and make their deliveries. So obviously a lot of congestion and safety concerns that come from this activity. Microhubs are part of a comprehensive freight strategy for New York City. We have a number of reports where Delivering Green, Delivering New York, and the New York City Streets Plan that all are sort of trying to find map out a blueprint for how we could have a more safe, sustainable delivery system, and microhub is just one piece of that puzzle. This also comes from a local law that was passed in 2021 that asked DOT to look into this concept of micro distribution, publish a report with our findings, which we did, and there's a link here in the presentation that will be shared after this, and establish a pilot program to test out this concept. So we're at the pilot phase and excited to implement it this year. Also, something that happened last year is we passed our commercial cargo bike rules, and so this just provides a foundational element for the allowance of cargo bikes in a specific dimension and weight and size and height of cargo bikes, which are a goal is, as part of the microhubs, is to increase the use of these more sustainable modes, cargo bikes being one of them. Now, how we're defining microhubs is it's a space located either in the public right-of-way or private off-street property where larger trucks or vehicles can transfer their goods to a smaller, low-emission or electric vehicle. And those could be cargo bikes, hand carts, or electric vans. And so these graphics kind of just show different models. It could present itself in different ways. It could come out of a retail space. It could be a truck to a pod. It could be a barge to a cargo bike, so waterfront transfer. We're really looking at a curbside model or an off-street model, and I'll go into more details about that. And the main goals of the pilot is increasing the adoption of sustainable delivery modes. improving safety for both those, the public, the safety of the right of way, whether it's the sidewalks or the roadways, also increasing safety for the delivery workers that are doing this type of work, improving air quality and noise by reducing the number of truck trips, increasing programming in areas that are maybe underutilized, like under the BQE or other overhead infrastructure, and then increasing operational efficiencies and cost savings for the delivery workers, which is just our way of kind of incentivizing them to be better actors in these spaces. So the framework is that it would be a 3-year pilot, broken down into 2 phases, looking to expand up to 36 locations if we can find viable locations, starting with 20 in the first year. We're looking at both curbside models and off-street models. And to start, we're just working with 8 participants, 8 delivery companies that responded to our request for expressions of interest 2 years ago. So we've been really like vetting these companies and making sure they're really going to be good partners, willing to share data, willing to work with us and kind of iterate as we're testing out this concept. And then in the phase 2, if all goes well, and if what we learn is that the activity is, if we're seeing a benefit and they're working, then we will expand our reach and expand the number of companies we're working with. And so here's a visual of the curbside model. It's illustrative, so the exact look of it will look different depending on the location and the type of modes the company want to use. But this one is showing a truck that would transfer to a cargo bike. And so we're looking at spaces that are about 4 car spaces, so about 80 to 100 feet of space along the curb that we could repurpose to designate as a micro hub. And we'd like them to be in locations that are mixed use, near transit or bike lanes, given that they might be using a cargo bike, and be able to, like, delivery workers can access the site easily, and that it's serving kind of high demand delivery areas. And then this would be an off-street model, and this would be in locations that are under overhead structures. So whether it's like under a subway line or under the BQE, for instance. And so we're looking to identify locations that are a bit larger, that are city-owned, that can provide a little more storage for the bikes or the goods themselves, maybe more programming, lighting and safety in under areas that are currently underutilized and maybe feel unsafe. Some of our placement criteria that we're looking at is, again, high density mixed use areas, close proximity to a truck route. We obviously need the space to be accessible to a truck, ideally serving priority investment areas if we can, and then areas that are in high demand for delivery and desired by the companies themselves and the neighborhoods that we want to place them in. And so DOT's role is to vet and manage our pilot participants, the companies, coordinate with identifying and screening pilot locations, developing terms and conditions for the participants, which I'll share in the next slide, providing guidelines for design and circulation, coordinating with our partners at DCAS, Department of Citywide Administrative Services, who own the city properties, and then NYPD for licensing and enforcement. And then we also want to collect and analyze our data from these partners monthly to track the delivery activity, ensure that there is truly a benefit to this pilot, and then monitor those benefits and impacts to determine whether we want to continue with this pilot and make it a permanent program. Some of the key conditions we would be requiring from the participants is that they use a sustainable mode, one that we've confirmed and vetted, that they commit to only delivering by that mode within a certain radius of the hub. And so that would be the clear indicator that you've reduced truck traffic and are only delivering by that mode. That you're not transloading, you're not doing that sorting and transfer of goods anywhere else within the radius of the hub. And we define what that radius would look like. So again, both increasing the use of a sustainable mode and reducing the double parking and sort of unsafe behavior. They would have to display their company name on all their vehicles. They'd be required to maintain the space. They would be required to share data. And then if at any point they would want to leave the space, they give us a 30-day notice. And if at any point we think they're not following any of these key conditions, we can break the terms of the agreement and revoke their license within 24 hours. And so this is just a discussion slide. Basically, we are generally excited to be in Manhattan. That's the borough of most interest. It's the highest demand. It's the narrowest streets. It's the greatest issues for, I think, the public at large and the delivering companies in terms of meeting the demand of goods. And so we're looking for spaces that may have enough space for truck parking, for transloading. So like I said, about 80 to 100 feet of length, near a truck route or on a truck route, near bike lanes in transit, in a dense mixed use environment. And if there's existing commercial loading or truck loading, we could repurpose those spaces. So minimizing the impact to parking if we can help it. So that's the end of my presentation. It's pretty short, but happy to answer questions and go into more detail about anything I just mentioned.
Thanks very much. And as I said, first the committee asks questions. Anybody have a question? Yeah.
Sure. So yeah, this is a great program and it makes a lot of sense to be a pilot. But let's say it's very successful. What happens do companies have an option not to participate? Like for instance, if FedEx says, no, thank you very much, we don't want a hub. And they just decide to keep riding and double parking. Is the plan in the future to eventually make this mandatory? How do you see it working in other words, is everybody going to have to participate? Because if some companies like FedEx or UPS or Amazon say, no, thank you very much, but we're not going to use the bikes. Have you thought about that?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. It's always a carrot or the stick. Obviously, we want to make this a successful pilot by providing a pretty inexpensive, accessible space and see how it works and kind of prove to the companies that that's a good idea because for them, it's a dedicated space. They don't have to, they can build their whole model around knowing that that space will always be available to them. And in talking to these companies, they've said that makes a huge difference because all their routes can just be guaranteed versus not knowing every morning where they're going to be able to pull over. So yeah, the ideal is that we prove that this is successful and they want to join. They're really at this point until we can figure out a way, like through policy, a way to force companies to do this. There isn't a clear route to be able to force companies. So the goal is that we make it really incentivize companies to want to do this. And we don't really have until we launch. I think it's hard to say how it'll go, but there's no clear way to force companies, but many of the big ones are really excited about it. I'll say that they all find that this will be super helpful for them. Many of them have clear sustainability goals of their own. So this is only supporting that. So I'm feeling optimistic for now.
Okay, Susan, Janine, Janet, and Lois.
My question kind of dovetails with Dan's in the sense that scale of this operation is kind of important. So I'm just wondering, who the 8 companies are that are interested in participating, or what type of companies are they? What size of companies are they? And are they of a sufficient size that they might actually be successful at incentivizing the larger companies? There's some relevance scale-wise there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a great question. I can't list the 8 because they haven't signed anything yet.
Just the type of company.
Yeah, but it's a mix of some of the big ones that you'll definitely know and want to make sure they're improving their operations and the way they do business kind of casually on the street. And then a number of smaller, more sustainable focused businesses that we're excited to help by creating these spaces because they're the kinds of companies that maybe can't afford to rent out a retail commercial space on their own. So it's definitely a mix, but I think, the bigger companies will definitely make the biggest impact. So we're excited that they're participating.
That's great to hear. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Janine.
I'm just trying to understand, because the original press release didn't mention any area in community board 2. Where is the location of this pilot and how many sites are you going to have and how has it changed since the October press release?
Yeah, so we just had a release maybe 2 weeks ago that specified the first 3 locations, and those are in the Upper West Side. And it's part of another pilot called the Smart Curbs program, where they kind of rethought the entire Upper West Side area and curb regulations and kind of started with a blank slate. So that is a separate pilot, and microhubs is part of that, which is why we started there. So there's 3 there, and at this point, we're just open to other locations. We haven't identified or finalized any others. We were really just focused on getting the first 3 and all the administrative steps to getting those first 3 out there. So they're
you're
not
no
even installed yet.
Yeah, so you're no longer focused on Upper West Side, Greenpoint, Clinton Hill, or?
Correct. Yeah, we're ready to move to other neighborhoods.
Okay. I think it was Janet,
Janet, oh.
and then Lois,
Mhm.
yeah.
Mhm.
And then Ben.
So you, you kind of answered my questions, you've gone around, but so each hub is specifically, it's either Amazon or DHS or UPS, it's not a multi-brand.
Yeah, and so this is something we went back and forth on. Ideally, we want it to be a shared space, but given that it's a pilot and then enforcement is an important piece of this, we are starting with one company dedicated to the space. So yes, if you've seen car share signs around where it says get around or Zipcar, it'll look like that, where it'll say the name of the company on the sign. And then our hope is that maybe even by phase 2 of the pilot, we've kind of learned enough and maybe have strategies for finding a way to share the space, because that is the ideal goal. And I think it would be the goal for the permanent program as well.
Right, and I guess that would require more city engagement, or, right, okay. And then are you looking for ideas? I mean, Janine asked, you're focused on the Upper West Side. Do you want us to provide some ideas at the
I
today?
would love that. Yeah, if you have ideas now, or you could send them via email. Yeah, I would love, we can open it up on, thoughts about areas that are at a high demand or high problem area for the double parking. Anything now would be great. I would take it down.
Well, just a quick suggestion, Hudson Yards, all those built Hudson Square, that was a printing district, huge loading docks, which are no longer leveraged. Because they're no longer printing buildings. So I would think you could have some really interesting opportunities there. And Heinz controls most of that, and they're pretty progressive. So there could be some interesting space.
Anything in CB2 you can think?
That is.
That is BB2, Hudson Square,
Oh,
not
Hudson
Square.
Square, I thought
I
it
said,
was Hudson
Dartmouth
Yards.
Yards, I meant Hudson Square,
Oh,
but I
great.
think there could be some, some really good opportunities.
Is that,
Yeah.
are you thinking of like curbside in that area, or are they even more off-street locations?
I think you might be able to find off-street, because they're, huge loading docks.
Yeah,
Mhm.
okay. Lois, I
Yes.
guess, and then Susan. Yeah.
I think this is a very interesting program. My question is, what are the protective gear? The reflective gear of the drivers and the cargo bikes? And are the cargo bikes e-bikes, and will they be licensed and insured? And how will they be licensed and insured?
That's dependent on each company, both the what they wear and the types of bikes they're going to be using, but they have to follow the new rule, which is they have to be pedal assist cargo bikes, and they have to be certified, use certified batteries. And I mean, the cargo bike companies that we're working with, they all have strict safety regulations. It's different from, I would say, food delivery, where a lot of the workers that are actually riding the bikes are employed or contract employees versus, and their equipment is known and vetted by the company itself.
They'll be wearing reflective gear for night use.
Yeah, I mean, yes, that for of all the companies that I know, they all have protocols for safety of the employees themselves, including reflective gear.
Susan and then Janine.
Shirley, would you like to hear suggestions now, or do you want to save that?
We can save it for
For
business
business
session.
session.
Yeah, we
I
will
have
definitely get you
strong
suggestions. Very excited. And we'll be discussing that in business session. Who did I say was next? Janine, and then.
You had mentioned in the presentation that it would be, you would go to priority investment areas, and community board 2 is a tier 3. And downtown, it's really, I guess, the Three Bridges area is tier 1 and the East Village is tier 2. I mean, so are you realistically looking at anything in community board 2?
Oh, yeah, we are. Yeah, I mean, we want to test it in every neighborhood if we can. So, but obviously we want to, if there's interest, I would say in priority investment areas, we would prefer to go there. But given that we're kind of taking it as interest comes, we're open to your neighborhood as well.
Okay, so Ben.
You mentioned briefly, like, for the curbside spaces, some sort of, like, like safety equipment, like armadillos or bollards or things like that. Do you have any, like, more specific, like, like safety design? I mean, not necessarily design concepts, but like any more specific, like, ways you plan to create those, like, safety barriers to prevent, like, conflicts between operations in those spaces and the street or the sidewalk?
Yeah, they will vary slightly depending on what mode and the location itself, but generally speaking, the area where the employees will be working and sorting would be fully protected by physical elements. So flexible delineators, granite blocks, colored space to show that it's definitely not a space where a car should be pulling in, and again, there'd be vertical elements to ensure that. And then the space that would be kind of unprotected would be where the truck pulls in, because obviously the truck needs to have an open space, but otherwise the other half of that hub would be protected.
Thank you.
Okay, anybody else? Okay, I have a couple of questions. I had looked at an earlier report on this, and okay, first one is, how many trucks a day do you anticipate might be accommodated? I know each of these will be different in size, but I'd just be curious as to how many at a time could be accommodated, because we certainly see many trucks at the same time on our streets. And both on street and off street. So that's
So-
one of
Obviously, we'd love to see them in practice, but from our conversations with the partners that are interested, we'd estimate 4 trucks a day. So it's not a ton of trucks, it can only accommodate one at a time. And given that we're basically providing them this kind of guaranteed space, they've all kind of indicated that they would build their model around it. So they know that they only have, they know when their truck is arriving and when it's going to leave, and we'll only send the next truck once the space is available. So building their routes around that availability.
Okay, and I guess one of the questions is how can the community express their interest in the program? And we would do a resolution, for instance, but are there other ways that people can access the program? That is, get to DOT with their ideas? Is there some website or something?
At this point, it would just come through, the borough commissioner's office, and then they would direct it to me, I think. That would be there's no formal process. But you have me and other staff at DOT at your disposal to send suggestions to.
Yeah, well, obviously, we'd have no problem with that because our resolutions do go to the borough commissioner's office. Can you just hold on? I did make some notes as I went along, and I just want to, but at this point, you were not closed. You are still open to communities.
Oh, yeah. Yes, absolutely.
Okay, and there was something in the original list. I have noticed that we find it. Long report. Hold on. It was on 14th Street. One of the potential participants was noted, but it was 14th Street between Union Square and Broadway, which would be Community Board 2, but it was listed as Community Board 5. So was that the northern side of 14th Street? Are you considering that location still? And I guess.
That might
the
have
other-
been an early idea. I honestly, things have changed so much since then that I can't remember, but none of that was set in stone. It was sort of just like,
Okay.
doing a quick analysis of locations where like the land use and the truck route and the bike network kind of align. So I mean, if you're interested, we will go back and look at that location, especially if it's on the CB2 side that you're interested in, then
Yeah,
happy to.
if it's on the CB2 side, it might be an interesting location. And then you
Can
were
you,
also
can you give me the
mentioning-
intersection again? It was 14th Street.
It was 14th Street between Union Square West and Broadway.
That's pedestrian, I said.
Well,
That
that was
curve was
probably
pulled
why they would
out.
wanna
Yeah,
do it, I would think.
why not? They would not do
They
it
would,
now.
no, they might do it because
I think
that
that's.
space is there.
north of
you
our
know.
area.
I think it's CB5.
Yeah.
The
But
north
then,
side.
and that would be the north side, but the north side is also pedestrian.
Yeah, everything's been pedestrian.
So that's a possible, okay, that was one, and then you had one in CB2. You said CB2, I think, no, I can't find it. All right, that's enough of that one. Okay, the other question is, how do you visualize these locations serving the surrounding community? In other words, I guess in terms of location of deliveries, what would be the surrounding areas that would be covered? And how many blocks, north, south, east, west, etc.?
It would be, it'd be a discussion with the company. So I think like once we land on some locations that we like in CB2, then we would go to the companies and say, hey, are you interested in this neighborhood and these locations? And then it would be up, it would be, if, let's say it's UPS, it would be, where's UPS delivering in that area and what mode are they using? So if they're choosing a hand cart, their radius is going to be a lot smaller than if they're choosing a cargo bike. So kind of all those pieces dictate, but I would say it would be like generally a radius circular around it. Obviously, it depends on kind of the geometry and the land use around it, but they're serving that area. It would be in discussion with them on how far they're able to serve, given the location and the mode they choose. So sorry, it's not a straight answer, but
Yeah, so it hasn't been decided really, or it would be kind of flexible depending on the company, in other
Yeah.
words, what the actual radius of service would be, okay?
Yeah.
Okay, Lois,
Yes, the logistics, once the cargo bike load up and then they go to the designated areas, where are they going to park? Will they be on the curb? Will they take a parking spot? Will they be on the sidewalk? Will they be at a pump? What is the logistics of where they're gonna situate themselves?
so they are not allowed to park on sidewalks, and that is also now dictated in the new rules. They have to park on the curb, and they can park where any commercial vehicle is allowed to park. They can pull in. From cargo bikes are now operating regularly enough in the city that we're able to get some information about kind of how long they park and where they're not there for more than 5 minutes. So it's a very quick drop off and then they move on. So ideally, yeah, it's taking up a very small amount of space, obviously less than a truck or a van, and then moving on. Our goal at DOT is to now start thinking about ways to provide access more systematically, especially in Manhattan for cargo bikes, whether it's like expanding existing corrals or providing space within them or just adding more corrals where we think it's necessary. So that's something that we're obviously going to be a little behind the demand, but something we're working towards as well.
Thank you.
okay. Is the committee done with their questions? Okay, then we're gonna go to our
You have-
public guests.
Well, you have a
Just
bunch
read
in the
them.
chat, right?
Should we just, you wanna just read them through? the
Yeah,
chat? I think
sure.
that's the easiest way.
Pete Davies writes a question. I think part of it was answered earlier on, but microhead partners, how are those partners chosen and how are the partnerships established?
So yeah, I mentioned this earlier. They were chosen based on who responded to our request for expressions of interest, our RFEI. We released that a couple of years ago, had a number of companies respond, and through lots of conversations and vetting, kind of landed on 8 that fit the goals of the program and were clearly going to be good partners. So that's how we vetted them. And then, you know, depending on the location and the interest, those companies will be dispersed sort of throughout the 5 boroughs. Um, yeah, and was there a second part to that question?
Well, I'm gonna have Pete speak, because I just, he raised his hand, so go ahead, Pete. Finish up your question.
Great, thank you. Yeah, I'm just confused by, is it a delivery company that is proposing to be a partner? Is it a retail company? Is it a building owner? I'm not sure what a partner is.
It's a delivery company.
Okay, so if a delivery company is chosen to take up curb space, for example, in our neighborhood, there are meters. That would mean that that meter income disappears. Is there a fee to be a participant as a partner?
Yes, they have to pay a permit fee. It's a fee that they pay for the year, and so they have the space for the year, and then would have to renew, or we would reassess after that year.
And have those fees been established, the level of those fees?
Yes, they're now public in the rules that were just published last week.
Great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Laura, you're a panelist. Why don't you go ahead and ask the questions for yourself?
Thank you. I've got a few actually. It's a very interesting program. I see it all the time, you know, folks are parking and trying to unload in a hurry and leaving a little bit of a mess sometimes or blaring music. So I think kind of corralling them in these locations makes a ton of sense. Do you foresee they're going to be 24/7 zones for these companies? Like what's your vision for how it's going to impact the community? That's my first question. And then the second is, did you consider opening these up to the potential companies that are partners as sort of like an auction style or bidding on the sites? Because it strikes me to have your own little micro hub in the city could become quite valuable as this kind of goes further.
Yeah, so to answer your first question about the hours of operation, this is something that we would put in sort of the terms and conditions of how they are good neighbors at the off hours, in terms of noise mitigation, et cetera. So one of the benefits of having the companies kind of join a program and sign on the dotted line and pay and is that we can sort of monitor them, have sort of like the ability to reach out if there's any, you know, behavior that's not working well. We have the ability to revoke a license if they're not good neighbors. So we have the ability to kind of engage with them as needed to make sure they're being good neighbors in the areas that they're serving. And I forget, what was the second question?
The second question was around opening this up like auction style for bidding for the partners just to see what the commercial interest might be. I suspect it's quite valuable over the long term for them.
Yeah, we don't really have like a mechanism for us to do that and sort of like charge, you know, some there are a lot of rules about how we can charge private entities, and so the permit process is sort of what we're given for now. That you know, a bidding there's not a clear path for how we would go about that. And I think the other aspect of this is we really wanted to work with a pretty small subset of companies, so we had just some level of control to start with and see how it works. So maybe that's a concept we could think about once we've sort of proven that the concept works.
Great, thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody else?
Yeah, there's a question. Do you think congestion pricing will affect the deliveries?
Yes. Hard to say specifically, you know, how it's kind of early, but given just the, you know, the toll, the extra toll on trucks, I think the behavior and how deliveries get made is, you know, in the zone itself will have to change. And I think it's just an added incentive for delivery companies to think about using alternatives to trucks. So I think this could support that operation. So yeah, we'll have to see, but yes, I think definitively it will change.
And could you post the rules in the chat when you have a chance?
Oh, sure, yeah.
That's all I've got. Maybe one more attendee.
Anybody here? That's, yes, that's.
Pizza.
See this?
Gary, last one.
Why don't you sit there?
Where's the best place for him to talk? You gotta get your voice heard.
Okay. Hello, given oh, sorry. No, okay, given a potentially successful rollout, we might see significantly higher cycling traffic as part of this, which I say is a good thing. Is there a plan to potentially expand the amount of cycling infrastructure in a potentially successful rollout in spring 2026, like bigger bike lanes, more protected cycle lanes, more facilities, so that the existing infrastructure isn't overburdened?
Yes, similar to, I'd mentioned trying to accommodate bike parking as the demand for it grows is this a similar, effort on our end to think about focusing on specific routes, specific areas that we see demand growing. So I think obvious locations are where these micro hubs are located that are using cargo bikes, but also, working with our partners to identify areas they've started deploying cargo bikes. I know, for instance, like in Red Hook, Amazon started deploying cargo bikes. So now we know that we can kind of work with them to determine which routes are getting used the most and build and expand the infrastructure to support it. Like I said, DOT will always be a little behind the industry, but we will work to catch up.
Thank you.
Okay. So I guess that's it, right?
No, that's all I have. No other hands raised.
Okay, anybody else? Because we'll go on to our next item on the agenda, number 2. But before I do, I should tell you, I think you probably heard me mention that we'll be discussing this in business session. And that will follow the second item on the agenda after we've gotten all our input. The committee will go into business session and they will discuss each of the items. Actually, we'll be discussing the second item right now because it's a special time. But we will be discussing this in business session, and chances are this will result in a resolution, which will then go to the CB2 full board, which means all the committees meeting together, and that will be on Thursday, February 20th. So if you want to follow up what's happening with this, please do attend our meeting. You can do it either on Zoom or in person. And that will be on our website, the information about that. And I think, does anybody else have anything that they want to say before I go on? No, okay. So our next item is in response, actually, to a request from New York State Department of Transportation, which is conducting a study which we have been asking for many, many years. And it is called the Route 9A Mobility and Safety Improvement Study. And it has begun. They've been looking at the Route 9A area and making some observations, State DOT has, but the whole process is really geared for our input meaning the community board, as well as the public, as well as certain stakeholders, as well as involved agencies, elected officials, and so on. It's a very, very comprehensive study. It is described in material which is linked to on our website, on our agenda for tonight. So if you haven't looked, take a look and you will see the description. There is a link to the website about the study. Janet, can you tell us the address of that website? Do you have it on hand? I think I'm not sure if I
find
do.
it.
Yeah. But anyhow, while Janet's looking, so there has been the formation of, let me think of what they call it.
It's called the West Side Highway Study. .com.
a West Side Highway Study, so that's an easy one, and you can get all the information on what they are doing with the study. But one of the things they have done is formed a Transportation Partnership Committee, which involves the various communities and various organizations who would be concerned with the improvement of 9A. And they have asked Community Board 2, and of course other organizations too, I'm sure, to send 2 folks to participate as part of this Transportation Partnership Committee in a focus group. And our 2 vice chairs will be participating, that's Janet Lipp and Janine Kiley. And the meetings will be in person. They are expected to begin hopefully the end of February. So we thought this might be a good time to discuss what kind of input we'd like to give to state DOT at that focus group meeting of the Transportation Partnership. So first, I think what we're gonna do is really go around the room, and I hope you've taken a look at some of our old resolutions, because they kind of stated the basics, and I can always read them if we don't say them. And then we can always add, and then we hope that the guests from the public will have some ideas too. So, okay, let's start with Dan.
Yes, I think I wrote that
Dan-
resolution.
Dan,
So,
many resolutions,
but this one in
And-
particular,
okay.
so I think one of the things there were 2 resolutions. One was to create a bus lane, a dedicated bus lane, because there is no bus route that goes up and down West Street, which I think is really important that we have a fast moving bus lane that can also service Hudson River Park. We also talked about, with a separate resolution, like a fast moving electric vehicle, so that this would actually fall right into the hands of these cargo bikes, allow them to go up and down and have a dedicated space, so that the Hudson River Greenway can be more of a leisurely recreational path, and leave create a lane for fast moving cargo bikes and other fast moving bikes, and allow the electrics, so all electrics could get off that, which should be a slow moving 12-mile-an-hour path. And then finally, we've always in multiple resolutions talked about more pedestrian crossings to go across West Street.
Right.
Now, I do think that with congestion pricing and people staying on the west side, there's gonna be a conflict here. Because if you're telling folks that if they go south from 60th Street onto West Street, they won't have to pay a toll, that means it's going to actually bring more traffic in. So it's gonna be, I don't know, it's like what the study is gonna be like, so you're gonna funnel in the traffic, you're gonna make less lanes for vehicles, but you're asking vehicles to actually take West Street. I believe West Street should not be exempt from the congestion zone. I think that you should be taxed on West Street like everything else, because it's not a highway, it's a boulevard. It's not, it's not an FDR Drive. It is a boulevard that has a park next to it. And I think DOT is wrong in associating West Street with the same kind of exemption as the FDR Drive.
That's a heavy lift. Let's just hope we.
But it
keep
doesn't not
working
make
out.
sense.
But, it's an interesting idea because, what will be the outcomes of congestion pricing?
Well,
I mean, does anybody know if there are any results, particularly at West Street at this point?
Well, they do, they're tracking traffic like mad, so we can find out whether there's gonna be any impact. The thing is, I mean, I don't drive, but people need to connect to the tunnels.
No, you're just saying it's like any other avenue. It's like you're just not making
Right,
things
but
up.
how else will, like, if people don't wanna access the central business district, how else are they gonna get to the Hudson?
Well, you don't
They don't
access the tunnels via West Street.
Oh, you don't?
No, you
No.
don't.
We access them by canal and
No, yeah,
Yeah.
to
you're
actually
inland.
leave.
Yeah, you'd have to go and go in anyway. That's why it doesn't make any sense. The only thing that you access without
Brooklyn.
is the
Battery.
Brooklyn Battery Tunnel.
Okay.
But then you're paying
alright.
2 tolls and you get exempt anyway. So I just don't understand
Ah,
why south of 60th.
But we're not gonna change that,
Okay,
here, so
okay,
we
you're
should,
not-
I'm gonna,
But our business session will,
But how
although
can you
this is kind of our
design it
business
without
session.
I know.
taking those-
So, I mean, Susan, do you
Well,
have
to
a
your
comment on
point,
that?
Dan, one thing we don't need a crystal ball to figure out is that there will be increased traffic there, which only underlines the importance of safety of pedestrian crossings. And I think that really actually bumps it up to a high priority.
That's a good point.
I like that.
So that's more, that it's more important. For increased pedestrian crossings. And I suppose meaning crossings with signalization too.
Yes.
And.
I'm done, that's.
Okay,
So it's actually the same.
wait a minute, Carter.
It's in a row.
Let's have a committee Thursday. Okay,
Giving facts.
Thank you.
but we want your facts. Let's keep it in order. Anybody else want to start adding things?
I'm just
You
gonna
want
take
round the
notes.
table?
Just talking about congestion pricing, I mean, the impact that it's gonna have on all the businesses in our area is gonna be bad. The negative impact, because a lot of people are not driving, which is the purpose of this whole thing, to prevent people from coming into the area, and it's gonna be really bad for the businesses.
Okay, but we're not discussing congestion.
I understand,
Yeah, let's-
but you brought it up,
Discussing
somebody
the
brought it, somebody opened the door, so I went
Oh,
through.
okay, we got your opinion on it.
That's it.
Chloe.
Okay, this is the door, not the door.
The other,
The tourist buses, if and when there will be a casino on the
Oh,
west
no.
side, will be the impact on that and the environmental impact of the smells and the noise and so on. And I'm not saying it's inevitable, but it's on the agenda of where these casinos will be. And as you know, if you do go to Atlantic City, there's multiple buses that bring you to Atlantic City, and then I think you get to Port Authority or wherever the development picks you up. And I just think that we have to consider this.
So in other words, to at least introduce it into the discussion.
Yes, please.
Uh-huh. And do you have any ideas about how that should be handled?
Yeah, none.
But they should be cognizant
Well,
of it, yeah.
what came up in the advisory council last night is that the Hudson River Park should have its own EIS study, which is separate from the one that the casino hired, which of course, the DEIS study that was hired by the casino is gonna say there's less impacts. So we wrote a resolution last night saying there should be someone else besides the casino that is actually looking into the study.
Conflict of interest.
Yes, but I don't know why they allow it.
I don't know.
EDC,
Mhm.
DEC,
So
yeah.
that was the Hudson River Advisory.
But this is not in CB2, this is CB4, and they unanimously
Oh,
voted
CB4.
against it
The
several
casino.
times, yeah, the casino. But it doesn't seem like folks are listening.
No,
And CB4 said there should be a private EAS.
Yes, yes, they wrote a 20-page resolution, 25.
Wow, wow. Well, okay, so they'll be feeding that in. Okay. Others?
did we want? I mean,
And then I can just read the
okay,
little
yeah,
pieces
no,
from the
I went
resolution.
through the resolutions and I
Yeah.
think if Janine and I just did like a cheat sheet on all the resolutions, they're very comprehensive.
That's great.
So
It's all there.
It's
Yeah,
all
the
there.
resolutions have it all there.
So we don't really need, I mean, the one thing that we didn't mention is obviously there should be more crosswalks, but they should be better designed crosswalks, should they be raised, should they have different coloring, should they like, so. There's lots of aspects. And I just wanna point out, saying that it should be a boulevard. In one of those notes, I didn't know,
Yeah,
but
right,
in
it should be
2000,
Boulevard.
well, in 2019, the speed limit on the West Side Highway is 30 miles per hour. I've always thought it was 40 or 50 miles an hour.
Yeah.
So it should be designed as a 30-mile-per-hour street. And
Or
when you start from there,
Do you want to ask for it to be 25? Do you want to make it less,
we could make it
Anybody?
the same as the rest of the city is theoretically
which is 25?
25.
Yeah.
But then
So
that,
if you want to,
I do.
I'd be in favor of that.
okay.
so.
And so then that dictates, like you try to create a self-enforcing street, but that just dictates so much about the design, if it's not designed for speed.
Yeah.
But that's an interesting point, because it is the rest of the city now has 25. miles an hour, so that's another one. Yeah.
There are speed cameras every other block on West Street right now.
Oh, okay. So they didn't enforce it.
But I think you're right, it's 35,
They do, they give you tickets.
35 or
Well, I, one
30 or 35.
of these
Right.
things, 2000.
You're under that.
Shirley, in an ideal world, what I would love to see is not so many, not cutting traffic lanes, but an elevated above ground for the e-bikes and all those things that go so fast,
Oh, you mean like an elevated, oh, sure.
right? And then no one gets hurt, they're all in the same, no cars are gonna go into. Right?
Right?
They don't have elevated cycle lane. I mean, they have special bridges.
They have different levels. in it.
Yeah, that's,
I see.
considering the bump on one of the sidewalks was that insane dollar amount. That crosswalk.
So, okay,
Yeah.
I'm just gonna throw out, if nobody else says anything, I'll just throw out, we've got the bus.
Can I also just add to that is like all parking should be taken out of West Street.
Yeah.
In order to make room,
No parking on West Street.
yeah, there shouldn't be, and there's parking up and down West Street in certain areas. I mean, Google took away its parking, there's no issues, it's like, most places are taking away, like, there's no parking in front of Morton, but you go all the blocks north of Morton up through CB2 have parking. In order for this to work, I think you have to remove the parking lane.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm just gonna, I'm sure it's in there, but, my pet peeve has always been substantially better safety crossing at Houston and West
Oh,
Street.
right.
Yeah.
Because it's,
Now with
so
the new
di-
building there,
yeah,
And they did
dangerous.
do a little extension there, but it's so tiny,
No.
it does nothing.
Actually, it's like a 15-second delay now, Janine.
Is
okay.
it?
Yeah, for pedestrians to get going. They're doing better at that. So by the time the cars get a green light, they're
To turn right,
to turn right, the pedestrians are ready from the other side, or they're already blocking that
got it, okay.
crosswalk. But they've done a better job, I think.
But there's no reason it can't be brought up,
Might be 20
you
seconds.
know?
Oh.
These are things that we should be,
It's right across every
you
day.
know, reading it. Okay, let me just read what I caught. One of the things that we had in one of our resolutions was to mark the pedestrian and bicycle zones within the crosswalks. To, in other words, separate.
yeah, to
Well, they do
put
that in Paris.
Yeah,
It's
that's
quite
a great idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Separate.
We're in favor of that. Is that your idea?
Works. Yeah, we talked, that was from the crossing near Jane Street when it crossed over the sidewalks.
So
But
separate.
it also might be the north
crosswalks.
and south side could be designated one on intersections, one pedestrian, one bikes, because it's a little crazy when, in the summertime. You know, like, there's,
People kind of work it out. They
Yeah,
go
I mean,
somewhere.
they can be very wide, but it's still.
Today,
a
a
mess,
boat
Yeah.
let go of about 100 people. And they were like, they're wearing white robes and they're wearing crosses. Couldn't quite figure it out, but there were 100 people that were crossing at the same time, not on Houston, but on Clarkson. And cyclists had, they didn't know where to go. There was no space.
Yeah.
And I think that would be really helpful to have designated areas for
Yeah, we have
pedestrians
that
and cyclists.
in one of these resolutions.
Designated areas.
it's such a influx of tourists.
And you mean besides, you mean besides in crosswalks?
It's in one of these resolutions, we talked about it.
Did we?
Yeah,
We talked about the.
The Jane Street one.
On Jane Street.
yeah, we talked about it.
Because we were gonna have it go over the parklet, we wanted to make sure that it was separate from, I guess.
Oh, right, that.
It's right here.
So then you know.
Yeah, no, it's just apply to all of crosswalks.
Yeah.
Okay, so let me see what else I've got here. Oh yeah, what about the width of the bike lanes? If we are adding, I have seen someplace that the widths right
Personally, I
now
think
are
it-
about,
Too
could
big.
be 11 feet to 15 wide. And.
Oh, wait, if
So
they're,
that the lane that we are asking to be added onto West Street is a two-way.
I would make it
right?
enough for two-way and I'd make it enough
Yeah.
for those cargo bikes. that we
yeah,
saw.
cargo bikes are slightly wider,
So what size about?
as wide as possible.
What is it, 8 feet?
Yeah.
Maybe,
Because right now 15 is. the
3.5 feet, probably like 4 feet, they have them.
6 feet, I think,
It's six-
I think the new bike lane's like 6,000.
No, I'm talking about a twin lane,
I
would
think
be,
those
let me
are
just
6 feet.
would be
Google
4 and
that.
4, would be 8. right?
Yeah,
I think so.
they should be double
Yeah, so
wide.
I think it's 8, like, doesn't Lafayette Street have a double lane?
In some
I mean,
places.
parts of Sixth
So what is
Avenue.
it, 8 and 8?
Avenue has the new standard.
So is it 8 and 8?
No, it's 4 and 4, I think.
What?
I think it's 4 and 4.
It's 17 feet for a two-way bikeway, according to.
Okay, so more.
Impact.
8.5 feet.
17?
Sorry, oh,
So
17.
that's.
Well, that's a
8.75.
two-way bike lane.
Well, aren't we suggesting a two-way bike
We're
lane on the highway?
suggesting a
Yeah.
double wide two-way bike lane, so each side should be double wide.
Yeah, it won't work.
But-
Oh, okay.
It won't work on West Street. There's not enough space.
Okay.
So how long did you say it was?
17 feet for a two-way bike lane.
17 feet, so yeah, that's even more than the 8 and 8. That's,
In ours, most of the area where we are is
so
8
there you
lanes,
go. Okay, let me see what else I made notes.
including a park.
Oh, how about, with the signalizations, bikes,
What?
for bikes?
Don't they just apply to the same signals that,
What?
that cars have? Because we're having too many conversations. Shirley, why don't you?
Yeah, I don't know. Should there be separate bike signals? In some places there are. I mean, bicycle riders tell me,
What's the question?
separate bike signals as part of the traffic signal.
No, because there's not a lot of,
Well, I'll tell you something. I think Deborah Glick's biggest issue with putting a bike lane on is that they're gonna run over pedestrians.
there's
So-
already a gazillion bikes.
I know, but I do
Because of the million bikes, maybe
I
they
do
need it.
believe
But they're
that,
not running over pedestrians.
but you know, they're helpful. If you go up and down the Greenway and every time you go by Pier 57, you go by Chelsea Piers, there's separate bike signals. I think it's helpful.
Well, there's a bike signal and then a what signal? It's just to let it, because the only thing that is getting a signal is the bike lane. Because the cars are crossing perpendicular. So the bikes are held.
Well, also in pedestrian areas like Little Island has it, there's no, they have them
Oh,
to
yeah.
stop, so that they
Oh.
allow pedestrian traffic to pass through.
How
It's
about,
something worth considering.
Oh, all the way up the. Green.
okay, so consider separate bike signals in
heavy-
areas with
heavy-
particularly heavy
The
pedestrian traffic.
Yeah, I think it would be a safety thing that might,
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's reasonable.
I think it should be discussed anyhow.
like, for instance, at Google, you wouldn't have a street on the right and it'd go right through. Where you might wanna have a signal there so that pedestrians can cross. So there might be specific ones that make sense.
Where there's a pedestrian.
The same thing on the right side of the Whitney, where there's big pedestrian going across by Jane Street, you might wanna have a separate signal. Otherwise, you're just gonna go right through it because there's no conflict with the vehicle traffic.
Right.
In certain
Well,
times,
okay, that's,
so much pedestrian traffic when there's an event,
Yeah,
that without that, there's no clarity at all.
okay, so to bring it up and have it discussed, I mean.
Well, and it's for
There's one
both
thing.
parties, because obviously the
Yeah.
cyclists need to know when they actually can go and people will stop. Right now,
Yeah.
we're just supposed to be polite. Polite.
Okay, another thing
License
that
plates
we
and
had
speed cameras for
mentioned
cyclists.
was signage. That there probably is not enough signage right now.
Specifically for, with what?
In terms of indicating where to cross, we had a resolution like that. It came about when there was that horrible killing of that woman near Spring Street.
Right.
And so we came up with a few things. Let me see what they said. And one of the things was signage directing pedestrians to safe crossings. That kind of thing, possibly signage within the street bed. That was another.
Well, you need signage for, fast moving bikes or whatever,
So,
some kind of safety,
Well, you should have the speed limit actually on the pavement.
Right.
Mm.
But the bikes for that dedicated cargo bike lane, there's no reason why they can't go the same, close to the same speed as traffic.
well, that's true because they're in.
Their
the
max, the, they Maybe we can go 28 miles an hour at most. I believe those are the rules for e-bikes and regular bike lanes. So that should
Really,
apply.
it's 28. Too fast.
Yeah, I mean, those cargo bikes, I don't even know if they can actually go that fast. They go pretty slow.
I think they go about 19, 20.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Amazon ones go slow though, because
Yeah.
they're.
Same thing as their
carrying
city
heavy.
bikes go 19 miles an
I
hour.
mean, they might, I don't know, I haven't looked at the rules for cargo bikes in a while, but there might be a specific speed limit in there, but I'm not sure.
They may go
You
slower.
feel
I think the cargo bikes actually go slower
Or
because
that more
because of the
things to
weight.
go off.
Yeah, and then they're stopping, ability to stop quickly is obviously compromised when they're that heavy.
But now that, you have many signs on the Hudson River Park Greenway that says no electric vehicles, so there's no other place to go, so they all stay there and they don't ticket them. But
So-
some kind of sign that says electric vehicles must use.
Yeah. And I'm sure they'd be happy to,
Reference
honestly.
the special.
It's actually closer to the deliveries, they're further eastland, they're not really delivering anything in the park.
But it's also the city bike e-bikes. They go fast.
Well, the white ones should definitely be in the other lane, blue ones, fine, where they are.
It's hard to find the blue ones.
Okay, so anyhow, the need for signage and certification.
Yes, sure.
And the other thing that I came across was about lighting. That there were some complaints about lack of sufficient lighting. And obviously that's in the evening.
And the Greenway and Manhattan lights are out. Between down in Tribeca, like Northmore to Houston, they're out. It's like you're riding in the dark.
So that.
But
would
that's
be
the Greenway, that's
right?
New York
That's the
State.
Greenway, I mean, but they are in charge of the Greenway too, so I wonder, that's one thing we really don't know. I would think that the Greenway. is
Their lights are there, they're just not
organized,
working.
Okay.
But my understanding would be.
They have
that
a video. of, like,
It's a 9A
riding
study,
through it.
the Greenway goes along 9A. But that would be another one, okay, let me see what else I got here.
Going back to that.
Oh, okay, yeah, Carter.
Can you come to the table, Carter? Nobody can hear you.
Yeah, Carter, come over so we can hear. you.
The forward thinking on the cargo bikes, I
Yeah.
think is something to be considered, because if the volume really gets high, you can't really pass very easily. And this is gonna be an issue that needs to be thought out because of the differing speeds. And if you have single bikers and the cargo bikes and there's that big of a speed difference, it creates a very unsafe situation with
Within
pedestrians
the lane.
and
the
longer
extra lane that we
straightaways.
Recommend.
Right. Because it's very important, that everything's relatively going the same speed. So if you have a higher speed limit, but the cargo bikes can only go slower, and you have people crossing the streets, it creates a very different environment. And having everybody move at the same speed is very important for pedestrians. Because if you've seen some of the cargo bikes are taller. You can't see through them. There's a lot of issues. And, I was talking to somebody about this, which as we move forward, that they become more similar to trucks. And that you can't see through things, around things. And so just suggesting some ideas to look forward a little bit on where things will go, I think is really important, because this is an easy way with a straight shot without other issues. And it's where a lot of people will use ultimately to go north-south.
Yeah, and we have some specific. So we have some specifics relating to that stuff, but I guess even just in general, consider the, future needs, et cetera, for those types of new forms of
I just think
transportation.
pedestrians, because it's a very different than cars.
So
It's
are
an
we
intersection.
we're talking about the extra lane that we're at.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
For the extra lane.
Because there's no island or any separation from that last little bit. So if you've got all these different movements,
It's the need. Discuss, okay?
Yeah, I mean, that's a bigger.
One thing that you're gonna think about is, where do you put this lane? I mean, you have this unused area, which is kind of just like a bunch of weeds in the median. which the NID was trying to beautify, but never has beautified.
Some trees.
Well, I'm just saying is, if you run out of space, there's space.
Mhm.
Yeah. Right.
Like if you
That
get
would
big
be
fights
right.
about parking, I mean, well then. No,
I think people probably, I don't know what happens, but I think about the Upper West Side, they got rid of all the parking from 59 to 110.
Yeah.
Nothing happened. Like, everybody continued to live and
Considering,
nothing
like on
happened.
Westford.
Yeah, so it's kind of strange how people adjust to the parking thing.
it'd be better if you lost parking and you took that,
So
and you'd have
is,
more.
are we saying consider eliminating parking?
Well, yes,
Oh, we did say that, for sure, no parking on West Street.
but,
All
think
parking.
about different uses for the median, which is underutilized. I mean, whether it's planting
Oh,
trees, whether it's,
interesting.
I mean, it's a beautiful area. It'd be great to have trees there, but if you run out of space, you could, depending on how much money's going towards this boulevard, you could make it maybe not as wide.
Well,
I mean, it's really wide right now.
But connected to that is the resilience issue.
Right, a resilience.
And ideally, they would be using absorbing concrete and materials that would be better for future flooding.
That's a great point.
So it would be more,
Next time you
And
go.
then
on
the
West
green
Street,
line.
you go and see how many
People are actually.
Right, or there is
Like a very
concrete now, which is more porous, there are materials that absorb water. They really, they're gonna use this thing.
yeah, and they have indicated that they are open to discussing this.
outside.
So consider materials.
If the
Right.
design is changed. And like
and more
traffic
selective.
slows.
The other thing about this, the street is it was designed in 1992 so that the street paving is actually horizontal so that it would stay, so it wouldn't crack as easily. So it's really loud, so you really hear every like heavy truck going when you're in the park.
Mhm.
So they're going to have to rip that off anyway, because it doesn't make any sense not to completely take everything out. So they're
Yeah.
taking everything out anyway, so you gotta look at when you look at it, you gotta look at that whole space from the point where the greenway is all the way to the curb on the other side of the street. So that's what you're playing with. That's why I'm saying you're gonna have an opportunity to decide what you're gonna do with the median.
Right,
Because
so
the whole street has to come out, because it's designed wrong from 1992.
Yeah, and also the materials that you might be using for paving the roadway.
That's right.
So it's both, it's materials, paving.
And then I'm back on the earlier conversation,
Mhm.
you know, and I don't know that we won't have an answer here, but we should be thinking about speed limits.
We-
You know, we should be thinking about speed limits and bike lanes generally. You know, and the cars, there's some cities that have fast lanes and slow lanes, or, you know, there are some cities where it's understood that's 25 kilometers per hour, which is 15.6 miles. It's just something that we're gonna have to grapple with.
Well, I mean, like the effective speed limit is 28, right?
On our
For-
bike lanes, I
Yes.
guess, yeah,
Effectively, yes.
right, but
You could consider,
Lower it
saying it should be lower.
yes.
Yeah, so in other words, we're asking, say, the 25 miles per hour for automotive. But then a different,
Yeah, maybe the bike
yeah,
lanes,
MPH, but
or they
maybe
just
something else for.
Maybe 20.
20, they should think about it, you know.
Because I mean, the whole point is giving
And it
these
should be-
fast moving cycles a place to go. If they're going 15 miles an hour, people aren't complaining. They're complaining when they're going 25.
And 20 is what e-bikes 1 and 2 can go right now, as well as moped C.
My bike can go 19.
Well, this is for e-bikes anyhow, and for cargo bikes and for electrified kind
Or
of.
for, you know,
Mobility.
Spandex guys who
yeah.
like to go super fast.
When you get off the,
Spandex guys.
yeah, the.
Oh, right.
When you get off the Williamsburg Bridge, I know there's a counter for bikes, but is there a speed limit as well? Has anyone been on that lately?
I've been on it lately, but I haven't
It's
seen
just a
any.
counter.
It's just very dangerous too.
Mhm.
Because you have pedestrians jumping in, even though they're supposed to be on the other side.
Yeah.
You've got people going in two different directions. You got a lot of people that seem like they're drinking or something and they're on their bikes
Mhm.
speeding. It's just surviving the Williamsburg Bridge is an accomplishment.
So anyway,
They go at the same speed, whatever speed it is, everybody's going the same speed, it's significantly safer, so.
It's
That's-
just hard because it's based on your ability.
I'm
So
not
what do you do
disagreeing.
with someone who can only go 8 miles an
Yeah.
hour?
I meant for the e-bikes.
Okay, the e-bikes.
You know,
Yeah.
that's like, if
Yeah.
everybody's going the same speed, it's safe.
Yeah,
Once
Well, I
you start
mean,
having passing and
If you're
different
gonna
things.
keep them to that speed, right?
Yeah, but it's, I'm not, it's just that they all move the same rate.
Yeah.
I'm not sure even the number is as important, but they're all moving at the same rate. 'Cause if the cargoes are faster and people start passing when people are coming, it becomes like an unregulated, you know,
Yeah.
highway
Okay.
somewhere
Which
else.
leads to enforcement. So do we want to talk about enforcement? I don't know.
I mean, this is a design, this is a
This is
design.
a design phase and,
Yeah. That's true, it's a design phase, so.
and I know there's gonna be some legislation at the state level, so we should follow up on that at a future meeting. In terms of registering for bikes that need licenses, which is mopeds plus, all mopeds require a license. So that might be something we can look at,
They
because there
do
was,
today, though, don't they?
They do.
they do today, so yeah.
Yeah.
I guess I'm just saying, like, we should see what the state, there is various state legislation.
Maybe we should get that on. our
Yeah,
agenda.
because I mean, I personally wouldn't want to see my city tax dollars being used to recreate a city DMV, which is what some of the legislation in city council would require, and that would just be a waste of taxpayer money.
Okay, so let's talk about.
That's
putting
a
that
future
on the
meeting.
agenda. So anyhow, I found that resolution I was talking about signage. I'll just read you the things I highlighted. This is what we recommended. These are short-term measures. Installation of signage both on the east and west sides of West Street and on the median, indicating danger and cautions pedestrians not to cross. Citing that the areas where pedestrians attempting to cross on West were unprotected and highly vulnerable. I mean, this was to do with Canal Street, near Northern. Okay, so that was to do with signage, directing people to the nearest crosswalk. Embedded in West Street roadbed, warning, do not walk here. And installation of a chain at the bikeways side of West Street. To thwart access to those who may attempt to cross there. Evidently, that was because fire trucks, the fire trucks that have that kind of chain in it. Seems to recall, do you remember that?
Yeah, we wanted to get, that's specifically at Leroy Street.
And then,
We're basically saying that we want more crossings, why wouldn't they have another pedestrian crossing there?
Yeah, we were asking for an extra
Yeah.
crossing.
So that one makes sense, it's already been, it's kind of there and isn't there, and that's the same
right,
reason why the woman died on Spring Street, she jumped the
Exactly.
chain.
she jumped the chain, did
It
she?
wasn't crossing in the
I didn't know
crosswalk.
that.
Yeah, correct.
Okay, and then accessing dedicated funds to bollards, because well, the infrastructure bill, we don't know where that is now, was offering funding for bollards. Installation of crosswalk and signalization, we talked about that already. Okay, more frequent crosswalks and signals, we talked about that. So that's another one. Let's see if there's any
Yeah, I read-
others in these
I
resolutions.
mean, and Janine and I, as you said.
Oh, you went through it, you go?
Well,
Yeah,
I went
we'll-
through it before I came, but we will go.
We
through
will
it
make sure
together.
everything that's in the
What
list,
do you
we
think
will.
about bollards and the two-way bike lanes?
No, we have the list, so we don't, you don't need to do anything
Yeah,
else. We have the
no,
list.
Yeah,
I
because
mean,
we have,
was there
we
a
can
couple
cut-
of things that came up tonight that were a little different?
I
Like
have
what
those.
Carter authored?
yeah,
And-
we can cross-reference our
Yeah.
notes.
I think one of the things is there enough funding to really redo the whole roadbed planning? Because there's so much wasted space, but it could be better. I mean, the bike thing doesn't necessarily have to go next to the river. You know, there's a lot of, if this is really becomes more commercial use for the e-bikes, if that becomes the predominant use, it's a totally different, you know, flavor of how it's utilized. As opposed to the recreational side, which is the greenway. And I just bring that up because there's no reason they have to be next to each other.
No.
Well, there's no reason that we need to limit our recommendations based on a
That's
future
fine.
funding.
No, that's,
Okay.
so it's like, but rethinking it, actually, if that is going to be the change in commerce. you wanna be forward looking
I
at this
think
point.
when Levine had his plan, that bike lane is always on the east side, nowhere
Yeah.
close to the green.
Yeah, he had
It's
it
on the other
side.
That's right.
Because it's
Oh, that's
wider
the other
on the
side.
east side, yeah. But I do still think you should look at the whole thing.
Well, that we can recommend that we start from scratch.
What do you think about, and this is a design thing, what do you think about like soft bollards, if you're gonna have a two-way bike lane? Does that make sense?
They take up too much
They take it,
space.
it's the small one, not the big thing.
I mean, those white ones,
Yeah,
they just get run over.
Yeah.
ones, because, yeah, the flexible linears that have like, so that you see things coming, you have the little reflectors, I don't know, not all bikes have lights on them. I don't know,
Two-way lanes like that, to the Christie one.
as long as there's good lighting, I guess, you're not gonna have a
Yeah,
problem.
yeah.
Yeah, and we're gonna ask for good lighting. Oh, you know what else? Crossing time. We had actually asked for, I think, was it 40 seconds if they could do it? And somebody at the time from DOT told me they thought that they could actually pull it off. In other words, in each crossing. Now, I don't know if we add crossings, how it ends up, but certainly to give as much crossing time as you can. And that one resolution does say that, the average pedestrian crosses, at 5 to 6 feet per second. The slowest one would be 3 feet per second. Some studies
Yeah.
show even 2 feet per second. So it came down to, it might take as much as 49-second crossing time.
The
median is good for too. You can't get the cross.
Yeah, but I'm just saying it's very, very seldom that you find people in the medium, not maybe up by Little Island, but not further down.
Yeah, I mean.
But whatever the case, that was said, so I think we should be asking
Yes.
for 40 seconds if possible.
Yes.
They said that they could do, they were doing 37 in some places.
Well, I
But
think,
anyhow, you have the resolution.
Yeah,
It
so we'll
was
go,
about the crosswalks at the time was for the Charlton Street crosswalk, but
Yes.
it went further. Yeah,
Well,
Lois.
I know we were talking about that particularly, we were talking about wheelchairs. And,
Yes.
and people that are on canes and so on, and then,
Right.
and carriages as well, and we have to consider that.
Yeah, and parents with strollers, I mean, all kinds of walkers. Yeah, increasing crossing time to at least 40 seconds, preferably more if possible. But they did say, somebody said that they could actually, DOT said that they actually thought it was a possibility. So that's an important one to be asking for. And let's see if there's any others that we haven't.
Traffic, so it's just thinking about, it's a very conscious device and the cars, and it's going to that long. Unrealistic that bikers
What's that, Carl?
it'll be unrealistic for bikers to wait 40 seconds like they have to right now at houses. If they're on.
I mean, and nobody, unless it's somebody standing right there, like doing enforcement, I don't know if anybody waits at house to the street for 40.
What about cars?
No, I'm saying.
Nobody's actually riding on the street there because it's too dangerous, but
Yeah.
when they,
But the light is still to the bike lane too.
I mean, the crossing is also for bicycles.
oh, I see what you're saying, on the pure 40 side.
Yeah.
Yeah, they will never, if there's nobody crossing, then just, yeah. you
They'll
go.
just go.
No, but that I'm just saying that that's sort of the conflicts that need to be looked at
Okay.
to come up
True.
with
True.
something, because if you have a signal and nobody obeys it, that's also unsafe.
You know, this is
Right.
so
It's a
ridiculous.
complicated dance of figuring this out, but it needs to be pointed out. Particularly as we have higher and higher usage, you know, in Hudson River Park, I mean, just. You know, it's becoming more and more popular.
That's why I like a median bike lane.
Yeah, but I do know somebody who was killed because they blew through the light and a car thought they had the right of way and they were killed, which is awful, but they didn't obey the lights. So when you have lights, people expect, like, so the truck guy must still, his light could be ruined too.
But if you put the bike lane in the middle, you would have less people crossing there because they're the only ones getting caught. It'd have the bike lane with the red sign, you'd have people crossing, it would actually probably cause less conflicts than if it was on the east side of the road.
Or, you know, if you do keep the median, like Allen Street is a wonderful bike lane, and you have the bi-directional bike lanes
Mhm.
that it's adjacent to the median. So you know, if there's enough room, you keep that, plant it and have bi-directional.
That's right, that's what I'm saying, concept.
Yeah.
So bring that up
On
as
either
an
side.
example then, for sure. I really, I
Yeah,
think
Alan's
it's
fine with
obviously
that.
we've covered most things. I've got signage, lighting, that's really.
Well,
Yeah,
if you can get all these things done with the new boulevard.
yeah, that'd be great. But anyhow, that's certainly enough to feed in, and it looks like you two focus group people have a pretty good handle on it. And, let's see if is there anybody in the public?
I don't see any questions from the public. I've been monitoring it. Let's just double take it out.
Are you?
PP
Carl, you have
had a
anything else to
question
say?
about,
I don't see any hands.
English. She
Oh,
wants.
here we go. No matter what, pedestrians always have the right of way. That's Darlene. Okay, that's just, will signage be in English only?
You know, that's really
But also there's,
something that is brought up to us all the time.
also there's
especially
like,
for Chinese.
yes, but there's also can be a shift to pictures.
Yeah.
Like you see on the
there's
highways.
universal.
Like signage is not just words.
Trying to.
Yeah.
So the digital changes in languages.
So it's like.
They do that on the trust side. It's all digital signage. You see it in Spanish and English. Where? They have like no electric vehicles in Spanish and English.
Yeah.
Or pictures like.
A red X or whatever.
Pics, okay. Anything else?
It's actually
Anybody-
quicker read if
anybody-
you just do like.
Anything else on the transom there?
No, I don't see, that was the last question, Mr. Darlene, let's see. Here, hold on, Pete Davis, the committee should please calculate the cost loss revenue that might be the result of installing a micro hubs. I can read the micro hub comment by Pete, it wasn't in here before, you want me to read it to you?
Why not?
Okay, the committee should please calculate the cost loss revenue that might be the result of installing a micro hub at any given location. Particularly if those locations take over a metered area that generates revenue out of the
Oh,
park.
he asked about that.
You did, okay.
Oh, yeah, we had
Yeah.
that, I think.
Yeah, he asked about that,
Yeah.
because they like,
The initial permit.
yeah, there's,
was so
there's a
low.
permit fee for the pilot. Yeah, in the rules, I emailed the rules to everybody, the link to it. So the permit fee, like for the first, because it's like a 3-year pilot, right? So
Yeah.
the fee for the first year is like a little over 2,300, and then each following year is like 950. So we were like, oh, it seems pretty low, but then we realized like it's just for the pilot anyway. So following the pilot, if they were to do that, hopefully they would reconsider those fees.
That point is, I hope it becomes mandatory, I hope, but it's like, the company can't just opt out of it.
Well,
Well, they should though
I
ultimately be
figure that's-
multi-branded and the city should be managing that because.
Yeah.
What I'd like to see on a resolution on that, like 4 trucks a day, it just seems so underutilized.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the space should be,
Multi-branded when after.
Right, there should be a multi-branded area, it shouldn't just belong to one company.
and it should be, there should be a reservation system, so that's, because what do you have to do? You want people double parked. at
Great
night.
idea.
Yeah.
Make reservations, the trucks come in at different times.
Yeah,
So it should be a multi-branded area and with more trucks a day.
yeah.
And with some kind of reservation system. I also would suggest that we, since we're so early in the month for February, that we post this in our calendar asking for suggestions, because I wouldn't want just this group of people. It wasn't announced as looking for suggestions for micro
I
hubs.
think it actually was.
Um,
I don't have the agenda, but I think that's what it was for info.
it says presentation.
Oh, not micro hubs, sorry.
Yeah,
For the
no,
west side, that
Yeah,
one.
no, for the micro hubs, we weren't asking
Yeah.
for locations. And I think we should specifically have an outreach to all the different
I think
block
that- I
associations.
agree.
And the
You hear it,
bids,
Mark? Okay, so we'll do that.
and to the business associations, the
I think
bids.
Just talk.
Well, the PIS, I think will, yeah, that's true, they may not be doing their own, I keep mixing up the.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
this is for residential delivery mostly.
Yeah.
Yeah, in terms of suggestions that we make that are more specific or granular, I do have one concern, which is that Puma from DOT was very clear in expressing that this is a pilot program and that they really haven't refined it to this point of like a schedule, multiple brands and all this. And I think that's my sense from the presentation is that this is intentional so that there aren't, because, you know, it's sort of baby steps and get this set up for success.
They want
So
to.
that
I
there's
agree
not
with
so many simultaneous variables that the whole thing goes to hell because it's
Yeah,
hard to separate out
Right.
what the thing is that isn't actually working.
Well, I
So-
think we can say for future.
So yes,
post-pilot.
exactly. So I just want to say that that's something that we should consider.
Yeah.
So,
I had one
okay.
in front of my place and putting it in front of residential is not the place to test it. I would just tell you guys that right now.
No.
Well, they want them to be adjacent to truck routes, so they want them to be like, at least on wider streets, no?
Truck route, I live off Lafayette, I mean, these are all truck routes.
Yeah.
In the city, but it is not the place to do a pilot because the activity starts very early. The trucks come in very early, like 5:30, 6. I mean, and I just say that this is why when they're giving examples, it's under the BQE.
Right,
And, you know, in areas where this can be refined and figured out, but this is like, is a big conflict for many areas in our.
Huge,
Low traffic area.
yeah,
yeah,
lot of
and that's
states,
just the way they
they're
would
looking
the guidelines.
and then they can
And
feed out and.
examples they gave
pedestrian
is
traffic in
definitely
that
not
area. Because it's
the actual impact of
buildings.
residential areas.
Good bicycle.
But it's kind of a,
Mhm.
I think that's why I asked what the radius was, what they would
I
serve.
think they want
And
mixed
it's also
use.
why the
For
low
some reason
number
I-
of trucks.
It is mixed use.
Yeah, I think that's what they're
The
looking.
low number of
It is
trucks
definitely-
allows it to.
Yeah, that's a square,
Some
totally.
Yeah.
Because the one truck is a lot of,
They
Right
could
in
feed
front of
out-
a lot of small packages.
They could feed the
Yeah.
Soho and try.
And you're coming right off the canal.
Everything,
Yeah.
so
Right,
it seems like it's not a lot of trucks, but the split up of a box truck is down to a lot of. Cargo box, you know, because it's mostly small package.
yeah. Of course, the problem is that we're inundated with trucks right now on our residential streets. And this is supposed to be a way of diverting them, right?
That's true, I just.
Well, that's a good segue into possible locations within CB2.
Right. To divert from residential streets. So maybe what we could do is just a kind of a basic resolution that simply states what the problems are now, what this solves, and that we are now looking, and this is what the criteria are, we're looking for
You know, Canal Park.
locations
That'd
to
be a good place.
decide, and we'll be reaching out to the community, and that's the resolution.
Well,
Right, and that would
I-
support
should-
conceptually.
Should we,
Yeah.
I think it might make sense, I mean, if you think, so then that's fine, but I think it might make sense to offer a couple of possible
Right,
sites, because it sounds like
That's
they
what they
very
want.
much want that from us.
That-
That was
yeah.
a specific ask from
Right.
them to
Yeah.
us. So I don't think
No,
it has to be
definitely.
exclusively this, but I think while we're here, we should offer a couple of possible
okay,
sites.
how does everybody feel about
And
it?
I have a site,
Right.
right into a site that I would like to
We support it
suggest.
conceptually.
I
We
think we-
like it, are hoping that it can be done in CB2. Done and will be feasible. Feasible in CB2, okay, and that we will be reaching out to the community and then what you said. right?
What's your side?
Well, as the criteria were being communicated to us, the east side of Sixth Avenue somewhere between West Third and Eighth Street jumped into my head for various reasons. a traffic lane has just been taken out to accommodate the much needed connective tissue bike lane. So it's close proximity to a truck route, it's close proximity to transit, there is a bike lane there, it's a mixed use situation, and to Carter's point about the difficulties that a residential residential entrances, that specific area between Third, there's the basketball courts, then there's a bank, then there's CVS,
There are
then there's that
residential
block
of
from
that.
hell, but the entrance,
Yeah.
but the entrance is not on
I
Sixth
think it's a
Avenue, that
crazy
big building.
busy area.
And then there's, that block from hell at 8th Street there. So I think
That's what Waverly is. yeah.
there's kind of a big strip along there
Yeah.
where something could possibly be cited, where there would be
Yeah.
room for
And then,
truck
and then it
parking,
would
where
give
there would be
access to
good
the
lighting.
delivery.
And then the smaller, and then all around there
Mm.
are all the much smaller
Right,
streets
right.
where these kinds of trucks already have too big an impact.
Okay, I
Would that be
just wanna, I wanna
removing
go
another
like in
traffic
a
lane?
different direction.
No.
If you
No,
look at
parking.
Canal Street, just before you hit West Street, it's never used. Everybody's taking the
Sure,
left
it's true.
down Washington, going into the tunnel.
It all
But there's
is-
this empty area right by the sanitation building, where the salt building is, it's in our areas, to the right of Canal Park, no one except for homeless live in Canal Park. And it's like this big open area, and they're not
When you
even
say
there.
Right of Canal Park.
So you go down Washington, you take a right,
Yeah.
There's-
It's between Canal Park and the.
and there are
north
wide
side of Canal.
sidewalks, and it's a city building, it's the salt building.
And Canal
Right,
Street,
nobody
the
went-
north
And
side
then
of
the
Canal Street.
sanitation building is one block north of that, but this is back to Hudson Square, because it's not gonna be disruptive. And the bike ride to your area is 3 minutes, but there's no traffic there, and it's just kind of like a city building owned area with wide sidewalks that no one walks on.
It's
I
true.
walked there during COVID.
It's true. And I always wondered why that was. I guess because the use.
No one's taking a right,
It's
why?
like-
Because,
The UPS, wasn't there a UPS building there, a big delivery?
no, that's further north, I'm talking about the salt, that's where they keep the
You
salt.
have to cross to the south side to cross the highway.
Bike ride from.
Well,
Yeah,
depends.
well,
Always
I
my
don't think that's a
issue
3-minute bike.
in
Oh, yeah.
respect to what Susan said, our site,
Pretty.
no
It's near the highway. So.
idling or reduced idling of these trucks. Yes, that's very
As
important.
they load and unload.
No idling.
Yeah.
So no idling rules.
Yes.
I'd recommend a hectic area with a lot of pedestrian activity wherever this is gonna be placed.
Yeah.
What happens, these guys come and start yelling, hey, this is you, hey, come get, I mean, it's a lot of stuff going on, you got a lot of guys showing up, they're in a hurry.
Yeah.
They're doing volume deliveries, I mean, this is a very,
Yeah.
it's like running a distribution center out.
Yes.
Well, man, we've seen them pop off with.
So here's the picture.
They're constantly going in Tribeca, you see them just parking and distributing, so there's obviously a need for it, and those are in busier areas, I just think that it's.
So,
Yeah.
but it would service CB2 also. It is, right?
Right, no, it's in the far southwest corner of CB2, the very
Shirley, here's the
southwest corner.
picture.
Right.
This is the salt building and
Yeah.
that's the sanitation.
Does everybody agree with those two?
I
That we
mean, I
suggested?
like Dan suggested. But we can throw some out, then I was recommending that they have a conversation with Heinz about the under leveraged loading docks. They have massive loading docks, but I don't think they're gonna give up their loading dock
Well,
for
they-
friggin' $2,500 a year.
No, well,
If you have it at Canal down there, you don't need another one.
Yeah, you don't need that, but
they
that's
did
just
say
something.
that they have this loading dock program that they're going to retain.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Look.
What about on Third Street where there's the,
Oh, yeah.
where the cars aren't supposed to be parked?
That's a good, I support that too, but that also is probably an area that's a little further away or further east, but that's a good one.
With all the people who.
Well, but I will tell you that that's
Yeah.
residential and it's
So
Washington
loud.
Square.
You know, well, it's already happening at Morton Williams. I mean, that's an unofficial.
Yeah.
Unofficial hub, for sure.
They
How
have
do
driveway
you
there.
feel about that, Ben? You live there.
Well, but I mean,
Over the
it,
years, we've always gotten complaints if there's that kind of.
yeah, no, I mean, I had thought of the space behind Third Street, but I mean, you know, if it checks, you know, even like half the boxes, it's worth a suggestion. They could look into it and decide.
And
It's a
how
bad
is
idea.
NYU gonna have all those things on the north side? It's been there
What?
forever. All those,
So that's.
those sort of
between,
cargo
Mercer-
containers on the north side of Third Street. That create.
God knows, they keep on saying they're almost done.
Right.
Yeah.
almost done.
Credibility on that is.
Yeah, but I feel like,
Arlene now, Arlene Peralta, you know, our community outreach
You know,
person.
another spot could be,
Oh.
all that, space that Wegmans has taken over, just, they don't pay anything for it, they've taken over that 8th Street, you could use part of
But
that.
they use it. It's busy.
Right, but they are paying nothing.
Are you talking about?
You know what I'm
Lafayette Street?
saying? No,
Okay.
8th Street, where
8th
Wegmans
Street.
takes over that whole street and really is taking over the bike lane, pretty much.
Well, there's a tons of cargo, I mean, that they
Yeah.
deliver in and out, and then that's where the bikes are used.
Yeah,
I'm just
I
saying, they don't
just
pay us
don't
nothing
think
for that.
there's
They're constantly
the
blocking. the-
opportunity
And
there. but-
they, I've given up taking photos of the trucks that are too big, that go out into the street, et cetera, et cetera. All I'm saying is, we have somebody who's taking, you know, sidewalk space and paying nothing for it.
That's an interesting dynamic, because those loading docks are left over and they're zoned properly, and that's how loading docks have traditionally been in those older buildings as the trucks have changed. It's why they got rid of those rules when they rezoned in Soho and NoHo. But those are the back end loading docks where the trucks are level, they're in and out. So even though they stick out, that's how it is.
Well,
In most areas of the city. And
you know.
They're used
give
to
it
it.
up.
I mean, they're
People-
servicing already, let's put it that
Yeah.
way.
Brings up an important
All I'm
point.
saying, that's a spot.
that, that if, and Darlene brings it up kind of too, that there are all these micro hubs already operating. The idea is to get rid of the illegal operating hubs and replace them with ones that work, and there should be enforcement. To your point, that we shouldn't be putting in hubs in places that don't make any sense, and there should be big fines levied.
I mean, that,
And if it eventually is successful.
but they do a massive amount of delivery from Wegmans.
That is being used.
Yeah, I mean, where are you gonna put
It's
that?
an office
Yeah,
building,
yeah.
there's very little housing in there. That's all I'm saying.
I have to take a look, the Wegmans is it's on 8th between what and what?
Lafayette.
A lot bit further, yeah, I don't go that far east usually. But there's other buildings that just like park their trucks right on the bikeway, east of the Marlton, which is a place I frequent, you know,
on 8th Street.
and
Oh, yeah.
constant trucks parking on the north side of 8th Street.
Well,
Can we ask for a recommendations by like February 15th? I just want to
Yeah,
give people
yeah.
a date and then we could review the list.
Do you want to write up a little
I'll write up a-
call for
Yes.
ideas?
Yeah,
That's a great idea.
They
Uh,
need 80 feet, what was their?
Yeah, 80
requirement?
feet.
80 feet.
it's in the, I have
80.
about 3 to 4 parking spaces. Anyways, it's in the presentation.
Yeah.
80 to 100.
Successful.
What?
It's important that it's put where it can be successful.
Yes.
To work out the kinks.
And also,
Putting it in places where there's even a little bit of conflict, is not the greatest idea.
No,
Because it's
no.
not gonna work.
and the whole idea being that we're trying to avoid the conflicts that are existing like that.
Because if we have a lot more of them, they'll be a lot less used.
Yeah.
So you don't wanna put them to start where it creates a lot of
So,
issues.
so give
I'll
some
put something
criteria.
together, yeah.
So the one thing in this thing though, are you gonna comment that 4 trucks a day seems
Underutilized.
underutilized?
Right.
That's the size of the trucks.
But remember, you can only do small packages. So like you're delivering a refrigerator or something heavy or a bed or a mattress, it's not gonna work on a micro.
The most of it gets
Oh,
delivered.
just,
to buildings,
it's something that Darlene is bringing up.
Right, but we have a
The
gazillion
packages are this big.
of
And
people.
Trucks are carry so many. They're coming to the area that one truck actually.
Like it could be like a
services lot
3-hour,
more.
like a multi-hour
Yeah.
But-
operation.
Well, hopefully they would become more efficient too, because I have Adam Zellin he would always look into trucks, because it drove him crazy. That talk about underutilization, and most of these trucks are only like a quarter full, they're really empty. So maybe,
Should we say that?
well, hopefully like with congestion pricing, they'll think, well, maybe instead of doing 4 trucks, we'll do 1 truck. You know, they'll start being less
Right.
lazy about consolidating their deliveries.
So you can mention something about this.
Or just like, yeah, or just like the idea of like asking, like hoping that they'll be like as efficient, like use the space and truck space as efficiently as possible.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, Adam always goes crazy about that.
I mean, yeah, over a whole day though, 4 trucks seems.
I guess it depends, it
Cause
depends.
I see an.
But at one time, if you got this large truck, how many can you fit in?
But they shouldn't be
into
that big,
space?
cause we're not allowed to have super big trucks in the city.
So maybe that should be one of the things we say, that consider reducing the size of the trucks as it is. Should we say
Well, I
that?
mean, if the space is 80, like, they're not, it's not gonna
80.
be like an 18-wheeler.
No, 80 feet should hold 2 trucks at one time. I mean, well, I don't know.
I don't
We
know.
I mean, the Amazon trucks that currently come in are fairly small.
We'll be here all night.
Yeah, well,
talking.
it's like, we're not designing the program, we're recommending
But-
changes.
Let us-
That's for them.
Anybody have any other locations? you
Things to
want?
be discovered.
No?
Okay, so the way I'll do it is, of course, I'll talk about the program and say that it's good. And, or that we think it's gonna be good. And then say that, we are going to be reaching out to the community, well, we are reaching out to the community for ideas. In the meantime, please consider these possibilities, and then the 3 that.
Well, if we request
On
them
the
by the
14th Street.
15th, we can ask,
East of West Street.
Oh, yeah.
we can talk about that, we can look at the list,
Okay.
present, if there's like 6 ideas and maybe 2 are horrible, that
Right,
makes sense.
so
We can
request
present them
by
as
15,
exact,
Right,
as an amendment to the
Right.
resolution.
250.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
I just wanted to throw out, for future meetings, because you
Yeah.
wanted, kind of discussed earlier, the New York State e-bike legislation. I know stuff was presented last year, so take a look at what's being presented what's being introduced this year. I don't know what's been introduced, I haven't looked at.
For 2025.
Yeah, so
Okay.
2025, presumably stuff that didn't pass. And then I mentioned this to Janet as well. I would like to see a 2-way bike lane on Lafayette Street, south of Bleecker. Right now, if you're going south, you're on Broadway, and the bike lane ends at Bleecker, and you're basically competing with tourists, delivery trucks. There's the bus lane on the right, so you really officially can't go there. I tried that once and a bus just rammed on me, on his horn. But it's a death ride. It's a total death ride, and you can turn, but it eventually Lafayette becomes 2-way. No, it goes on Center. No, it's Center and Lafayette.
Right, but at Spring Street, you have a southbound route and a northbound route.
Yeah.
So where would you say Lafayette, between where and where?
Lafayette, south of Bleecker Street.
How far down?
Because
Right. Cause if
um,
it's 2 ways till Spring Street, then at Spring, you can continue going south.
yeah,
Yeah.
Just tell me.
from Bleecker,
10th Avenue, just south of 14th Street, there's already a truck stop right there.
Well, wait a
There's
minute,
no
no.
traffic.
yeah,
Lafayette Street, of the 2-way bike lane on Lafayette.
from Bleecker to Spring.
Okay,
It's good.
I mean, hey, what is on your agenda?
Only a couple of
Makes
blocks.
sense, fine.
Why not?
Now, what
Yeah,
is
and
that? What are you talking about? You're talking about
Cars.
locations for hubs?
Perfect location for a hub.
Where?
There's no traffic on 10th Avenue. Between 40th, just south of 14th
Yeah.
Street, there's already a cutout.
Are
for
there
truck
islands
parking.
on Lafayette though, Concord Island?
Yeah. And weird spots.
Yeah, like
Okay,
on
so-
Bleecker.
And a city bike is right
But
across.
they
the way.
managed to
This
like.
whole
fix
area is
that
underutilized right
to
here.
get wider up until
So
14th
it's.
Street. That was Right, but they can like.
10th Avenue, to the corner of 10th Avenue
It's
and 14th
amazing
Street.
what they can do.
I'll get pictures.
Southwest corner. You see that? It's just like, there are already trucks there, and it's just free parking for trucks. And that takes care of the other corner of our neighborhood.
So
done.
it's,
Mhm.
so what about this one? It's underutilized or only trucks use anyhow?
Yeah, I mean, there's a huge city bike, like 40 bike station on the other side, and then there's a cut in, it's almost like a natural cut in for trucks that are just hanging out there, and we just like sleep there.
Probably idle.
Far west areas.
Yeah.
So we may as well have the trucks that are doing the.
And you have,
know.
yeah, you got a lot of space, right there. There's a reason why they're hanging out there, because nobody's using it.
We could reclaim the park that they did on Gansport and turn it back into a.
The park is on the other side of CB4, but, this is CB2.
Okay, so I think we have. I think the committee's been very creative tonight.
It's a good meeting.
Right.
Use our imagination.
Are we
And of
gonna,
course, the other stuff is with the other one, I'll just do a little summary of what we discussed.
are you bringing the meeting to a close?
What?
Should I close it on out?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Well, unless anybody else has anything to say.
Motion to adjourn.
No, it was good.
Second.
Okay.
They have that.
All right.
Public your input, everybody else.
Actually, I'm not.
Line
So.
For me to come here, I
Come
can't
on over
get,
here
I
and turn on.
can't.
With the
Universal.
Oh,
Amazing.
Yeah.
So annoying. I still have my old ID.
Nobody still going
But
on
it
that
is-
walkthrough with these guys, because they had me sign up for the walkthrough, but I couldn't be on.
Tonight, I just like got.
February 27th
I just kind of like.
A 9A?
No, I can like often, but just like, I'm not enough.